Wife made me sign a prenup to protect her assets, but after I got promoted and inherited money she demanded we dissolve it. Later I found emails proving she had planned this with lawyers behind my back, months before our fights began. My wife and I have been together for 8 years now, married for 5. When we were engaged, she brought up the idea of a prenup. At the time, I wasn't making much money, and she was just getting started in a promising marketing career. Her reasoning was that it was for both of our protections, but honestly, I knew it was more about protecting her stuff. It stung a little, but I wasn't thinking about a divorce back then, so I figured it wouldn't really matter, and what actually mattered was that we loved each other. So, I signed it without giving it too much thought. Now, life's a lot different. My career took off in ways I never saw coming. I went from a mid-level tech job to a high-paying executive position. I'm pulling in 4 times what she makes now. On top of that, my parents passed away unexpectedly last year, and I ended up inheriting $150,000. It's bittersweet, honestly. I would give it all back just to have them back, but I'm grateful for it. I've been careful with the money, keeping it aside for emergencies or long-term plans. She knows about the inheritance, but at the time, she didn't say much about it. Then, a few weeks ago, out of nowhere, she brought up the idea of dissolving the prenup. She said she had been thinking a lot about our relationship and now felt sure that I wouldn't steal from her if things ever went south. I was pretty stunned. The way she said it made it sound like she'd always assumed I'd be the one to take advantage of her. I reminded her that the prenup was her idea in the first place, not mine, and I asked what had suddenly made her change her mind. She got defensive and said something about how it didn't feel fair anymore, especially since I make so much more than her now. She even said the prenup felt like a wedge between us. Then she brought up my inheritance, suggesting it would be nice if we could combine everything to work toward joint goals. At first, I really tried to see things from her perspective. I wanted to be understanding. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake this feeling that it wasn't just about fairness or trying to be a united front. For years, I'd accepted the prenup as part of our marriage. I didn't love it, but I respected it because I knew it was something she felt was necessary. I signed it without fighting it because I trusted her, and I didn't think it would matter in the long run. But now that things had changed financially, it felt like she just decided the prenup was more of a hassle for her than anything else. If the roles were reversed, would she have agreed to just rip it up for me? Honestly, I kind of doubted it. Then things really took a turn when I found out she'd been talking to a lawyer. I stumbled across it by accident when I saw a notification on her phone from some legal firm. At first, I thought it was just a mistake, but when I asked her about it, she came clean and admitted she'd been looking into her options. She said it was just to understand the process and that she wasn't planning on doing anything drastic. But even though she kept saying that, it still felt like a betrayal. Why would she go talk to a lawyer without even bringing it up to me first? It felt like she was making plans behind my back without involving me in any of it. That's when I started rethinking everything. It made me question whether she'd ever really seen our marriage as a partnership. Had she always viewed it as a kind of transaction, protecting her assets and looking out for herself? I'd been there for her, no matter what, and supported her dreams and goals. But now I started to wonder if it was all just about what she could protect or gain from the relationship. And then the timing made everything even weirder. My inheritance had only recently become accessible, and I couldn't ignore the fact that it could have played a role in her sudden change of heart. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I've been nothing but supportive of her for years. When she wanted to go back to school for her MBA, I picked up extra expenses so she could focus on her studies. When she was between jobs, I never once made her feel bad about contributing less. But now, when the tables had turned and I was the one with more financial power, she was ready to completely throw out the prenup she insisted on in the first place. It felt like a slap in the face. I tried to let it go, tried to focus on other things, but the tension between us just kept building. She started dropping little comments here and there about how families should share everything and how trust is the foundation of a marriage. I couldn't help but feel like she was trying to guilt me into agreeing with her. It wasn't just about the prenup anymore. It felt like a power struggle. Like, maybe all this talk about fairness and unity was just a cover for something more calculated. And I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than what she was telling me. Then things really started to escalate. One evening, I came home from work a little earlier than usual. I didn't mean to snoop, but I heard her voice from the other room, and I realized she was on a Zoom call. She didn't hear me come in, so I stayed quiet and just listened for a moment. What I heard made my stomach drop. She was asking the lawyer all sorts of detailed questions about how to dissolve the prenup and what her options would be if I didn't agree. It hit me hard. This wasn't just some passing curiosity or a random thought. She was actively planning something. When I confronted her later that night, she tried to brush it off. She said she was just looking into it because she felt lost and needed to understand her rights. But to me, it didn't feel like just that. Why wouldn't she come to me if she was feeling that way? Why go behind my back and start making moves without even talking to me first? It felt like a betrayal, plain and simple. Not long after that, a mutual friend reached out to me out of nowhere. She told me that my wife had been venting to her about our financial situation, how she felt stuck because of the prenup, and how she was considering her options if I didn't budge. My friend didn't mean to stir things up, she thought I already knew about it. But hearing that my wife was talking about our private issues with other people, behind my back, just added more fuel to the fire. Was nothing off limits anymore? Could I not trust her with something as basic as our marriage? I decided I needed to take a step back and think things through. I started reflecting on our relationship, going through old memories and moments, trying to figure out if there were signs I'd missed. Had she always been this focused on money and security, and I just never noticed? Or had something changed over the years? The more I thought about it, the more I realized that the dynamics in our marriage had always been off. Maybe I was just too caught up in everything to see it. A few days later, she tried again to push me into talking about dissolving the prenup. She framed it as some way to strengthen our marriage, saying she wanted us to move forward without barriers. I told her I wasn't ready to make any decisions and that I needed some time to think things over. She didn't take that well at all. She accused me of being selfish and of prioritizing money over our relationship. That hit me hard because I've always made an effort to support her, emotionally and financially. I've done everything I could to make sure she felt valued and that she had the freedom to chase her goals, no matter what our financial situation was. Now, I'm just stuck. I don't know what to do next. A part of me wonders if there's a way to salvage our marriage, but another part of me feels like this whole situation has cracked the foundation wide open. How do you rebuild trust with someone who's willing to change the rules whenever it suits them? How do you move forward when it feels like your partner's been more focused on her own security than on building something together with you? I'm at a real crossroads now, and I don't know which way to turn. Do I try to fight for this marriage, knowing it's probably never going to feel the same again? Or do I cut my losses and walk away, hoping to find someone who values partnership over just looking out for themselves? It's a question I never thought I'd have to ask, and right now, I'm not sure I'll ever find a clear answer. Update 1. After everything that had happened, I decided to take a few days to clear my head and really think things through. It wasn't easy to separate my emotions from the facts, but I knew I had to try if I wanted to make a decision I wouldn't regret. I spent a lot of time reading through the comments and messages here, and I really want to thank everyone who shared their thoughts, even the tough ones. Some of you pointed out things I hadn't even considered, while others just made me feel like my feelings were valid. It helped me feel a little less alone in all of this chaos. Once I felt like I could approach the situation with a clearer mind, I knew I had to sit down with my wife for a serious talk. No more avoiding it or dancing around the issue. I needed answers, and I needed to hear the truth straight from her. So, I told her up front that I wanted complete honesty. I asked her directly why she wanted to dissolve the prenup and, more importantly, why she'd gone to a lawyer without even talking to me about it first. For a second, I thought she might shut down or deflect, but eventually, she opened up. She admitted that part of her motivation was fear. She said my financial success had outpaced hers so much that she started feeling insecure in the relationship. It wasn't about being greedy, she said it was about leveling the playing field. According to her, the prenup had started to feel like a barrier, something that was dividing us rather than bringing us together. She said she was scared that if things ever went wrong, she'd be left with nothing while I walked away with everything. I wanted to empathize with her, I really did. But honestly, I couldn't ignore the damage her actions had done to my trust. I told her I appreciated her being open with me, but I needed to ask her one thing. Would she still feel this way if I were earning less than her? Would dissolving the prenup even be on the table if the financial dynamic was reversed? Her hesitation spoke volumes. She didn't give me a clear answer, and that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't really about unity or fairness, it was about convenience. She didn't like how the prenup affected her now that the financial tables had turned. I explained to her that I wasn't ready to dissolve the prenup, not without working through the deeper issues in our marriage first. I told her it wasn't about holding on to money, it was about rebuilding the trust that had been broken. Her response? Disappointing. Instead of trying to understand where I was coming from, she accused me of prioritizing money over our relationship. That hit hard. It felt like emotional manipulation, and it stung. But honestly, it also made my decision easier. I knew I had to stand my ground. If she wasn't willing to hear me out on something as fundamental as trust, then I wasn't going to just roll over and give in. What followed after that conversation was a tense few days. She acted distant, barely speaking to me unless it was necessary. It was like we were both walking around on eggshells, not sure what to say or do next. I didn't want to push her, but I also couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. It felt like everything was off, but neither of us wanted to be the one to break the silence. Then one evening, I came home from work to find her sitting at the dining table, papers spread out in front of her. At first, I thought maybe she was reviewing something for work, but when I looked closer, I realized they were financial document statements for both of our accounts, along with some notes and calculations. She told me she'd been trying to run the numbers to show me how much stronger we could be financially if we combined everything. She had this whole pitch ready about how dissolving the prenup would allow us to achieve our goals faster, buying a bigger house, investing more aggressively, even starting a family. On the surface, her argument made sense. It seemed logical, like she was trying to present a reasonable case. But honestly, it didn't sit right with me. It felt less like a heartfelt conversation and more like a sales pitch. I told her exactly that, and she didn't take it well at all. She accused me of being cynical and of refusing to compromise. I told her it was hard to feel like a team when she'd gone behind my back, talking to lawyers and exploring options before even bringing it up with me. That's when everything really exploded. She started crying, saying she felt like I was punishing her just for being honest about her feelings. She said she'd only gone to a lawyer because she didn't know how to bring it up with me and wanted to understand her options before having the conversation. She claimed it wasn't meant to be sneaky, it was just her being cautious. But I couldn't shake the feeling that she was twisting the situation, trying to make herself look like the victim. It was like she was trying to avoid taking responsibility for how her actions had hurt me. After that argument, I decided I needed to take a step back and really think about everything. I started reflecting on how we'd even gotten to this point. Over the years, I'd always done my best to support her. When she wanted to go back to school, I picked up more of the bills. When she was between jobs, I never made her feel bad for not contributing as much. Now, it felt like all of that had been forgotten, especially now that I was the one in a stronger financial position. The shift in our financial dynamic had clearly exposed cracks in our relationship, cracks that maybe we hadn't noticed before, or maybe we just didn't want to see. Since that argument, things have stayed tense between us. We're civil on the surface, no big fights or blow-ups, but there's this underlying tension that you just can't ignore. I can see the frustration in her eyes when I refuse to budge on the prenup, and I can tell she can see the hurt in mine when I think about how everything has unfolded. It's like we're both waiting for the other person to make a move, but neither of us knows what that move is. For now, I haven't made any final decisions about where this leaves us. I'm still processing everything. But I do know one thing: trust is a lot harder to rebuild than it is to break. Whether we can move past this and rebuild what we had is something only time will tell. I'm just not sure what the next step is, or even if we'll take it together. Update 2: the tension between us hasn't eased, and honestly, it feels like things are only getting worse. We've been walking on eggshells around each other for days, barely speaking except for the bare minimum. It's like we're both just going through the motions, pretending everything is fine while feeling the weight of all the unspoken stuff hanging between us. I've been focusing on work and spending time alone to clear my head. I figured some distance might help us both cool off, but if anything, it's done the opposite. It's like the silence just made everything feel more loaded, and the space hasn't helped me feel any better about where we're at. A few days ago, I got a message from a mutual friend. At first, it seemed like casual small talk, but then, out of nowhere, they dropped a bombshell. They told me that my wife had been discussing potential divorce scenarios with the same lawyer she'd contacted earlier. I was floored. This wasn't just a what-if conversation about dissolving the prenup, it was getting real. My heart sank when I found out. And then, just to make sure I got the point, they even sent me screenshots from a group chat where my wife had been asking for advice on divorce. Looking at the screenshots, she didn't directly say she wanted a divorce, but she was asking a lot of detailed questions about what the process would be like, how assets might be divided, and whether she'd be entitled to certain things. It wasn't just a casual venting session, it looked like she was laying the groundwork for something much bigger. Seeing those messages hit me hard. I never imagined I'd be reading something like that about my own marriage. When I confronted her about it, she denied everything at first. She tried to play it off like it was all a misunderstanding, or that our friend had misinterpreted what she was saying. But when I showed her the screenshots, her face completely changed. There was no denying it at that point. She broke down and admitted that she had been talking to the lawyer about divorce, but she swore it wasn't because she actually wanted to leave me. According to her, she just felt backed into a corner and didn't know how else to deal with everything. She claimed that she needed to understand her options just in case things kept spiraling between us. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But in that moment, everything felt like a betrayal. It wasn't just about her going behind my back anymore, it was about how deeply she was questioning our entire relationship. It stung to think that, after everything we'd been through, this is how she was processing things. I don't know what hurts more, the fact that she was talking to a lawyer behind my back or the realization that she'd been planning for a future where we might not be together. That explanation just didn't sit right with me. If she was truly committed to our marriage, why was she already looking into divorce? Why not try to fix what was broken first instead of planning an escape route? It felt like yet another betrayal, one that hurt even more than the whole lawyer consultation about the prenup. I couldn't wrap my head around it. Why wasn't she fighting for us if she cared so much? I told her as much, that this wasn't something I could just brush off. I told her that the fact she'd even considered divorce, and gone so far as consulting a lawyer about it, made me question everything about our relationship. How could I trust someone who was already mentally preparing for the worst case scenario? She tried to explain, begged me to reconsider. She said she didn't mean for things to go this far and that she was just scared and didn't know how to handle her feelings. She kept insisting that she wasn't planning on leaving me, that she was just exploring her options because she was afraid. But honestly, her words felt hollow at that point. No matter how much she tried to explain herself, the damage was already done. I couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine when it clearly wasn't. I told her I needed space to process everything, that we needed to take a step back and reassess where we were. She begged me not to give up on us, but I couldn't give her that false hope anymore. I needed time to think. Since that conversation, things have been strained, to say the least. I've been staying at a friend's place for a few nights to get some distance, just to get my head clear. She's been texting me nonstop, alternating between apologizing and trying to justify her actions. I've barely responded because, honestly, I don't even know what to say anymore. Every time I think about the fact that she was already discussing divorce scenarios, it feels like a punch to the gut. I can't just forget about that. At this point, I don't know where we go from here. Part of me wants to believe we can fix this, but another part of me wonders if too much damage has already been done. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, and right now, ours feels like it's crumbling. I don't know if we can rebuild it, or if I even want to try. For now, I'm just taking things one day at a time. I've told her I need space to figure out what I want, and I've even started looking into my own legal options, just in case. It feels surreal to think about things like divorce, but I can't ignore the reality of the situation. If she's already considered what a split might look like, then I need to be prepared for that possibility, too. It's a lot to process, and I don't have all the answers yet. I just know that I can't keep living like this forever. Something has to give, one way or another. Update 3. After another week of reflection and giving myself the space I needed, I've made a decision that I never thought I'd have to make. I told my wife that I can't continue our marriage under these circumstances. It wasn't something I came to lightly, and honestly, I wrestled with it for days. I kept hoping for some kind of breakthrough, a moment of clarity where I'd feel like we could fix things, but it never came. The trust between us has been shattered in ways that I just can't see us repairing. The past week has been a blur of emotions. I've been staying at a friend's house, trying to clear my head, but the silence and solitude have given me way too much time to think. I tried to stick to my usual routine work, errands, even hitting the gym, but every single time, my mind kept circling back to her and the situation we're in. Every time I thought about those conversations we had, about her going behind my back to consult a lawyer, and about her talking about divorce scenarios, it just felt like a fresh wound opening up again. I thought about the kind of life I want for myself. I want a partnership based on mutual trust, respect, and honesty. But I couldn't reconcile that vision with the reality of what my marriage had become. It's not just about the prenup anymore. It's about the fact that she was willing to rewrite the terms of our relationship the moment they no longer suited her. And that kind of behavior? I just can't unsee it. A couple of days ago, we had another conversation. I told her I was still processing everything and needed to know if there was anything else she wanted to share. I wanted to give her one last chance to come clean about anything that might have been hidden or not fully addressed. She said there was nothing else, but honestly, her demeanor felt off. Like there was something she wasn't telling me. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but at this point, I don't feel like I can trust my instincts when it comes to her. What really solidified my decision, though, was a discovery I made right after that conversation. I'd been going through some old emails and files to prepare for my own legal consultation, and I stumbled across an email chain between her and her lawyer. It was from months ago, before any of this blew up. In the emails, she was already asking questions about the prenup, divorce proceedings, and how assets might be divided. This wasn't a recent thing triggered by our arguments, it was something she'd been considering for a while. That hit me hard. When I confronted her about it, she broke down again. But this time, her excuses felt hollow. She said she wasn't planning on acting on it and that she was just preparing for the worst, but honestly, I couldn't buy it. If she had concerns, why didn't she bring them up back then? Why wait until now, when the financial tables have turned? I've come to realize that betrayal doesn't always look like the dramatic scenes you see in movies. Sometimes it's quieter. It's the seeds of doubt planted behind your back. For me, this whole situation feels like a betrayal of the trust and partnership we were supposed to have. With all of this weighing on me, I contacted a lawyer to start discussing my next steps. I've been clear about wanting to protect my assets, especially my inheritance, which I plan to put toward long-term goals. The lawyer has been super helpful in walking me through what I need to do and what to expect moving forward. It's a sobering process, but I know it's something I need to do. Breaking the news to her was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. I sat her down, and I told her I couldn't continue living in a marriage where I'm constantly questioning her intentions. I explained that this wasn't about revenge or anger, it was about my need for peace and security. She begged me to reconsider, said she'd do whatever it took to make things right. She even offered to sign something formal to reassure me that she wasn't after my money. But by then, it wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about the erosion of trust, and I realized I couldn't see a future with her where this dynamic didn't linger between us. She was devastated, and watching her cry tore me up inside. Despite everything, I don't hate her. I don't think she's a bad person, but I do think she made choices that put herself ahead of us as a couple. And once that line is crossed, it's hard to go back. I've started moving some of my things out of the house and have been staying with a close friend while I figure out my next steps. It's surreal, packing up pieces of a life I thought was solid and permanent. But I know this is what I need to do for my own well-being. A few people have suggested that I'm giving up too easily, but I don't see it that way. For years, I've been supportive and committed to our relationship, even when things weren't perfect. I've made sacrifices and compromises. But when the foundation of a relationship is shaken this deeply, sometimes the best thing you can do is walk away. I'm heartbroken, but I also feel a sense of relief, like a weight has been lifted. This isn't the outcome I wanted or imagined, but I believe it's the right choice for my future. I don't know what comes next, but I'm hopeful that with time, I'll come out of this stronger and wiser. To everyone who shared advice and support along the way, thank you. It's been a painful journey, but knowing that others have been through similar struggles and come out the other side gives me hope.